All right, I want to talk to you about new communications boss at the White House, Anthony Scaramucci, and how he's already changed the messaging on healthcare. And I'm going to play for you a little clip in which he's being interviewed by CNN's Chris Cuomo. And in this clip, I'm going to point out Scaramucci's use of what I call the high ground maneuver. Now, the high ground maneuver, I read about this in my book that is upcoming. The high ground maneuver takes a debate that's sort of lost in the weeds, the little details that people can argue about all day long, and it takes it up to a conceptual level where you've essentially said you're the adult in the room, and anybody who doesn't join you on that higher conceptual level that anybody can see as the higher perceptual level. If you don't join them, you're lost in the weeds and you become the child in the discussion. All right. So watch Anthony Scaramucci go to the high ground on healthcare. I'm going to play you the clip here in a minute. And especially watch Chris Cuomo's face when he gets left in the weeds. All right. This is some of the best stuff you'll ever see. I don't say this lightly, but in terms of government messaging and how perfectly it's executed, the thing I'm going to play, is just about as good as you could get. I give it an A++. All right. So this is what's happened already in the messaging quality coming out of the White House in just a few days. All right. So I'm going to play this clip and look for the high ground maneuver. I'll explain it to you after you hear it. Won't play. I'm going to start it after Chris Cuomo said something about, hey, some Republicans didn't vote for the bill. How can you call it a success? Blah, blah. It doesn't matter what he said. All you have to know is that Cuomo's question was in the weeds and unimportant. And watch Scaramucci not really answer the question because that's in the weeds, but take him to the high ground of watch it.
Okay, so let's step back for a second. The reason the president's saying that is if you look at the macro features of what's going on, the Republican Party for 7.5 years has called for the repeal and replacement of Obamacare.
Context.
Moreover, what we know from free market principles is that when you make something a little bit freer and you decentralize it, you get two positive benefits to the consumer or the patient. You get lower cost of delivery, and you get better service. That happened in the airline industry, Chris. It happened in telecommunications when it was deregulated and made freer. And what the president is trying to do is make the healthcare system freer. However, because it's Washington, and there's a lot of webs here in Washington that have to be broken up, like the cobwebs in your attic, we have to get out there and start with incrementalism. All good entrepreneurs have to start somewhere with a dedicated plan to finish in a great place. And so while things may not be perfect right now, whether it's repeal and replace or repeal and delay, you are moving the process towards a freer system where you will get the technological S-curves that you've experienced in Silicon Valley,
technological S-curves,
in other areas of our economy.
Bam.
You have not been able to do that here because of the centralized nature of the way the hospitals and the doctors are interacting with the insurance companies. And so the president and Secretary Price and other members of the administration, frankly, all the members of the administration understand that. And what he's saying, like a good football coach, let's get off of the same offensive game plan. Don't focus on the micro nature of this today.
Don't focus on the weeds.
Focus on the macro, long-term effects that this bill is going to have on the society,
high ground,
and the positive effects it's going to have on the economy. We don't want to see healthcare expenses continue to go from maybe it's 18 or 19% now, Chris, into the mid-20s. That would be disastrous for the economy. We've studied other countries where you can get it down, and we have a plan to get it down. And one of the bad news things about this, it's not going to happen overnight. You can't put something in place and expect it to be the panacea, Chris, immediately. But what you can do is working with the great leadership of the president is move the process along to get it in a place where the American people will like in the next 3, 5, and 10 years. He is...
Oh, perfect. Just freaking perfect. Yeah. So what you saw was, let me cue this up again. I want to give you a Cuomo reaction face here. Here's a news guy who is used to just chewing Trump people up on CNN, or at least in his opinion, he's chewing them up. And this is his face when he's listening to the high ground maneuver. Because the high ground maneuver leaves you nothing. It leaves you nothing to say about it. Which part was he going to object to? That it's going to take a while to get it right? That we've looked at other countries to study them? Which parts is he objecting to? Is he objecting to using innovation and technology? Is he objecting to making the market freer? Is he objecting to do the same thing with healthcare that has successfully worked in other industries? This guy is totally owning this guy, and that's the face you get when you're totally owned. Because he really wants to disagree with some of this stuff. He wants to. But how do you disagree with the high ground maneuver? You do not. That's the point. The high ground maneuver is the part you can't disagree with. So Scaramucci just sliced and diced Cuomo like I've never seen. I mean, have you ever seen anything this completely dominant in terms of an answer? I don't think you have. I'm going to keep this one short just because I wanted to talk about that one thing. But let me just summarize for those of you who missed. So this was Anthony Scaramucci, new communications head at the White House, for the first time really giving a full answer about healthcare and how the White House sees it. It started out with a little in-the-weeds children bickering question from Chris Cuomo about, hey, your president once said this, but now he's doing this. You know, all the little gotcha stuff that makes news. And Scaramucci completely ignored the question. Completely ignored the question. And do you know why you should ignore that question? It was a dumb fuck question. You know, it just was, it was in the weeds. It was a small, detailed, unimportant, just didn't matter. So Scaramucci takes him immediately to the high ground. The high ground is the big economy. We've looked at other countries. The most important concept here is freedom of choice. If you get that, you can drive down prices. You can get the technological S-curve involved. And here's the really important part. He said, this isn't going to happen quickly. You have to create the situation where good things can happen, but it's not going to happen overnight. So Scaramucci completely took the high ground. He took the adult position in this conversation and left Cuomo with nothing to argue about. Because what he said, yes, it was a systems approach. Thank you for noticing that, actually. Yeah, and notice also that Scaramucci used a visual example, the cobwebs in the closet. Is that good visuals? Oh my God, that's good visual. You know, that's the sort of thing that when you hear it, it sounds perfect, but you don't notice that other people don't do it, right? So when you hear it, you realize it's good, but you don't realize how good it is until you listen to someone else not do it. You know, not use visual, you know, not painting a picture to make your point, but wiping away the cobwebs in the attic as imagery for what you need to do to get healthcare passed without going into any details. He gave no details, didn't talk about an individual, didn't talk about a specific policy, didn't do any of that stuff. Just took it to the high ground and said, freedom, we've looked at other places, this has worked in the past, give us some time, this won't be fast. All high ground stuff. You didn't see anything like that coming out of the White House before, except from the president usually. So I just wanted to call that out. It was kind of exciting, actually, to see something done this well. Is actually just kind of exciting.